Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. So we will hear from our Dharma teacher in just a second. I would like to introduce Ari Lathuras. Ari has been practicing meditation for about 25 years. One of her main teachers is Pema Chodron, and she's studied and practiced Pema since the mid-90s. And about 8 years ago, she became a student of Pema's teacher, Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. I'm sure I botched his name. And has also been practicing recently with Mindrolling Kondro Rinpoche. So let's welcome Ari, and we'll get some nourishing trickle-down Dharma today. And here we go.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be able to be with you today and offer some Dharma. So I started practicing with Pema Chodron in the mid-90s, and she used to come to the Bay Area and do what she called city retreats. And so we did a lot of intensive practice over the course of 6 weeks with her, about once a year for several years. And then she would do other shorter, like 4-day weekend retreats on different topics, one of which I'm going to talk about today. But I like to talk about Pema Chodron's book titles because I call them Pema Chodron's greatest hits, because I feel like the titles themselves are teachings. So I don't know how many of you are familiar, but her first most popular book was called When Things Fall Apart. And another book she has is called Comfortable with Uncertainty. And I think it's her newest book. It's called Welcoming the Unwelcome. And I feel like, just sitting with any of those concepts, like how do I welcome the unwelcome, is such a great practice and contemplation. So in these days of COVID times, I don't know how it is for you, but I feel like the uncertainty level of life is like on steroids, because, there used to be like a certain amount of uncertainty, and now there's tons of uncertainty. And it's hard to make plans, and things get canceled. And so it's kind of, in a way, the gift of being really brought into the present, because we're being forced in a new way to live with uncertainty. And so I feel so grateful and fortunate to have the Dharma to help me to be able to do that, and all the teachings in the Dharma that help me to accept uncertainty, be at peace with uncertainty, and maybe even welcome uncertainty. So I'm feeling very, there is definitely a level of stress around the uncertainty, but I'm in my daily practice applying more and more of how can I just be with this uncertainty. So I feel like what Pema offers us and so many of the Dharma teachings is a great tool to be able to find a way to be with this. And when we're not with uncertainty and we're not with things as they are, that is called suffering. And in Buddhism, the basis of all suffering is to either grasp or have aversion. So I'm sure we all know this human experience. When there's something we like, we want to hold on to it. We want more of it. We want it not to go away. So that's grasping. And when there's something we don't like, we want to get away from it. We want to push it away. We want it to never come back again. So that's the human experience of aversion. And we're constantly in this. This is human nature. It's the way our mind works. And we're always wanting to solidify the reality that we want and get rid of the reality we don't want. So grasping and holding on is actually a form of suffering. So this is not to say that we shouldn't allow good experiences to come into our lives. It's just that we want to be with them with the same kind of lightness and non-attachment as we have with the things that we don't want in our life. And so the end of suffering from a Buddhist perspective is to have the equanimity to experience the things we want and don't want with the same kind of quality of this is reality as it is, and I'm okay with that. So I feel like the Buddhist teachings kind of turn everything on their heads, because our conditioned Western mind, we always are trying to change reality and trying to get more of what we want or make things happen in the way we want. And as I said, trying to push away the things we don't want. And in Buddhism, we actually invite the things we don't want, because in that space, we can apply the teachings and actually expand our equanimity and our acceptance. And that leads us to greater peace and liberation. So the topic that I wanted to talk about today is a Tibetan word. It's called Shenpa. And the very basic meaning of it is attachment. But it's actually it's an ineffable experience. It's very hard to define. So I'm just going to talk about it, and then we'll have a little time to discuss amongst ourselves. So when I was first introduced to this concept by Pema Chodron, probably about 20 years ago, it was a 4-day retreat just on this one word. So obviously today I'm going to give you my condensed version, and hopefully people will be able to relate to it. And it's very much like what I was just talking about with the grasping and aversion. So it's also sometimes defined as getting hooked. I'm sure everybody has experienced getting hooked by something and getting stuck. So something happens and we're like, ugh, I don't like that. That person said that thing. That person's walking down the street without a mask on, and that just gets me. And then, we get into all kinds of stories, and it's also described sometimes as a stickiness. It's just like this unease that we feel. Sometimes we don't even know why. We just are feeling like, one moment we're okay, we feel comfortable, and the next moment there's something is amiss, something happened, and we might not even be able to define it. And then another way it's described as the urge to scratch. So often when we have that feeling of unease, we want to change it, we want to soothe it, and this is the thing that leads us to all kinds of behaviors that might not be that healthy for us, like smoking, eating, drinking, watching too much Netflix. That's one of my favorite ones. Eating chocolate. And, of course, none of these things are bad in and of themselves. It's just, when are we doing them, and what is our awareness about why we're, having that urge to do that thing? So the other way Pema describes this is that it starts, as I was saying, it's like just this feeling of unease. We might feel something in our belly. It often starts as a somatic experience. Maybe our chest tightens, maybe our jaw tightens. And that's usually like the first step in it. And then it's a process. It starts with that little bit of unease. And then that gets a little bigger and we're feeling hooked. And the third part of the process is we get all worked up, which is where the story comes in. And then we start having the thoughts, and we start saying, oh, that person not wearing a mask walking down the street is arrogant and doesn't care about others. And, all the thoughts that we have, right? And then the fourth part is where we act out. So the addictive behaviors, we might yell at somebody, we might, it's where the actual behavior comes from. So the first three parts of this, the kind of somatic tightening, then the feeling of even more tightening and getting hooked, and then the storyline, those are all still within our own body and mind. And the fourth one is where the behavior comes out that could be either harmful to ourselves or others. So because we're human beings, this is happening often in our lives. And a lot of our Buddhist practice is about training our mind so that we can have awareness of these things. And we really want to be able to interrupt this process at any point along the way. So if we feel a tightening in our body and we can slow down and bring our awareness to that, we may be able to interrupt the Shenpa right there and then and dissolve it. If we are getting hooked and it's getting more intense, we might be able to interrupt it there and dissolve it. If we have awareness that we have this storyline going on, we might be able to interrupt it there. So there is an effort to try to interrupt it before the behavior comes, which is the fourth part of the process. But even if we can't, we're in the behavior, we still have a chance to bring our awareness to the behavior. And we also have a chance to, bring our awareness to the fact that, yes, I'm a human being. I just experienced the whole process of Shenpa, and I can learn from that. So really, there's no bad place to bring awareness to your Shenpa. So that's kind of a summary of what it is. It's getting hooked. It's getting stuck. It's feeling it in your body. Then the mind engages, and then the behavior comes. I'm going to share a little bit more, and then we can have time for questions, comments, sharing out. So the kind of the last part of the teaching on Shenpa is how to interrupt it. And I talked a little bit about that, but just to break it down into numbers, because Buddhists love numbers. There's always numbers for everything. There's four numbers, and four words. They all start with R, and I'll say them twice in case you want to write them down. The first one is recognize, and that's when you have that somatic experience. So recognizing something in your body that's feeling uneasy. The second one is called refrain. So that's where I talked about where you have that urge to itch or do some kind of behavior that's harmful to yourself or others. Mostly it's to yourself at first. So maybe, pick up a drink or food or go to your phone, something because you're not feeling comfortable. And the third R is relax. And that is relax with the feeling. So you're feeling this unease or this tightening in your body. So just bringing your awareness to that, relaxing with it. As we know in Buddhism, this thing called impermanence, that applies to our emotions also. So any feeling we have will go away. It will change. So we don't have to worry about, getting stuck in a feeling that's going to, just stay with us forever. So if we're able to just relax and let that feeling be there, bring our awareness to it, it will often shift very quickly. So recognize, refrain, relax. And the last R is resolve to continue practicing this. So we want to recognize the tightening, refrain from acting out of that, relax into the feeling, and then make a commitment or resolve to continuing to practice this. And it's important when doing this that we always remember to bring loving kindness to ourselves. So, remember, this is the human experience. You're no different from anybody else. We're all going through this all the time. And that's, a wonderful way that there's a lot of interconnectedness between us all, that we're all dealing with this human mind and human experience. So I want to talk a little bit more about getting back to the suffering and Shenpa too. All of this, the grasping, the aversion, the getting hooked. This is all about our egos, and it's all about our self-absorption, which is also the human experience. And in Buddhism, the antidote to self-absorption is to do service to others. And so we see this a lot, and it comes up a lot in Mahayana Buddhism, which is a lot of the Tibetan teachings and practices. So when we are able to consider others, it automatically gets us out of that self-absorption. So I just want to highlight that because it's been a big part of my practice to, bring awareness to myself when I'm suffering. Sometimes my service is just to think of all the other people suffering in the world the same way I am, or people suffering in the world in a way that's much worse than the way I'm suffering. So when we're able to kind of expand out of ourselves, it often kind of starts dissolving that self-absorption that has us caught in suffering. I also want to highlight the fact that there are so many practices in Buddhism, and the practice of meditation, which is the most basic practice of all, I find is actually one of the most profound practices. Just sitting with yourself, befriending your own mind. It's something that's so opposite of what we do in Western culture. We're always occupied and busy and thinking. And so I just want to acknowledge that all of you who are practicing meditation are doing this very simple yet very profound and transformational practice. Just watching the mind, watching the thoughts, training the mind. All of these things are so simple and really lead to liberation. So, and then one of the other main practices of Buddhism that I love to contemplate and talk about a lot is the four immeasurables. And the four immeasurables are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And that's, a talk for another day. Those are each one of those, we could talk about forever. But I just want to bring them up because they are such a foundational practice for myself and a lot of people. So, if you want to do some reading on those, Pema Chodron teaches a lot on those. And my teacher, Pema Chodron, I actually have the same teacher whose name is Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. And they both teach a lot on those four immeasurables. So, and just to say also that, in our Buddhist practice, we're always developing compassion and wisdom. So, the wisdom is, accessing the Dharma teachings, and, compassion is obviously something that we talk about a lot, softening our heart, opening our hearts to others. So it's really a balance of those two things that are very foundational also to the Buddhist practice. So I'm going to close with a little bit of a reading from Pema Chodron's book. It's called Comfortable with Uncertainty. And this is just a little part of one of the readings called The Wisdom of No Escape. Ordinarily, we are swept away by habitual momentum. That's what she means by Shenpa, basically habit behavior. We don't interrupt our patterns even slightly. With practice, however, we learn to stay with a broken heart, with a nameless fear, with the desire for revenge. Sticking with uncertainty is how we learn to relax in the midst of chaos. How we learn to be cool when the ground beneath us suddenly disappears. We can bring ourselves back to the spiritual path countless times every day, simply by exercising our willingness to rest in the uncertainty of the present moment, over and over again. So I think she summarizes it pretty well there. And I think I'm not sure, we have a little time for questions. We can do that.
We have about 10 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ari. Glad you're here. That was awesome. I think sometimes our speakers can be hit or miss, and that's what I say to people. Like, you should join us. Come on, they're great people. It's awesome. But sometimes a Dharma speaker can be hit or miss, And this is a hit. So thank you, and come back, and I'll remember your name. Like when they'll put it in the newsletter, I'll be like, "Yep, let's go." So yeah, much appreciated. Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks again. Ciao.
Thank you.
Hey, Ari, it's Thomas Bruein. Thank you so much for your wonderful teaching today. It just occurred to me that, as you were describing the 4 R's, I was sort of anticipating, wondering what they would be. And in the relax, it kind of struck me that respiration or respire, might go well with that, because it's so helpful to take 3 deep breaths or more. We all know this, it's just hard to remember to do it in the moment, but it has such a profound effect to just, it not only stops us, but of course it, activates the sympathetic nervous system and all that stuff. So I think I'm going to throw in a 5th R there in tandem with relax.
Thank you. Great idea.
Yeah, hi, it's John.
Hi, John.
I realized that part of my practice involves coming into my body, because there's so much of my life I've lived kind of disembodied, and especially my spiritual practice before was kind of an attempt to bypass my body and what the sensations are. And so for me, the first signal that I'm in the midst of a Shenpa experience is my mind. And then it's kind of like I realize there's this obsessive thought pattern in my mind about something I can't control. And it could be big or it could be very ordinary. And then if I can come into my body, then I can feel that tightness in the body. But I have to make a conscious effort almost to do that before I can begin to relax and let go. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Abel, go ahead.
Hi. I want to pretty much repeat what other people said. This was really helpful. This was really both dense but clear. And I really value that. I actually read Pema Chodron's book, When All Things Fall Apart, back in 2014. I didn't remember the author's name. And it was when all things were falling apart in my life. Just like the end of a relationship, us changing jobs, and then a chronic illness diagnosis. So this year kind of reminds me of that year. And I think your talk is really going to be helpful. I think it's probably going to guide my next week or month in terms of how I focus what I do and how I refer it and how I guide my practice. And one last time, I think it was really valuable, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I wonder how you would, what your advice for interrupting the Shenpa of depression. I'm an extrovert trapped in an introvert world right now, and I've become really depressed lately, like more so than ever. And so when for people who have experienced depression, when you're really depressed, you don't want to take any action. You're like, oh, like the Shenpa is like, a brick house sitting on your head. So what do you think about, when you feel like you can't refrain, like refraining from the urge to engage in harmful behavior would be like staying stuck there. Like, anyway, I think you understand the question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really hard one, because there are different kinds of depression, and if there's clinical issues, I have heard many people ask Pema and the teachers about that. And, sometimes we need professional help with that. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. Meditation is not a cure-all for, clinical issues. So I think, engaging with medication, if it's helpful, and or therapy is also great. If it is the kind of like situational depression that you have awareness of, I think that the practice is the same. It's just sitting with it and feeling it and not fighting the feeling, not giving yourself a hard time for having the feeling. Sometimes it can be very self-absorbing. Depression can be a self-absorption. So I think the practice of finding a way to see if there's a way you can include others, even if it's just in your mind state. I have a Sangha that I practice with every morning, and at the end of our meditation, we do gratitude practice and send metta, which is loving kindness or, support to those who are suffering. So those two practices of just, what do I have to be grateful for in my life? Where are the people who are suffering that need to send them some ease? So I think those things can kind of help us get out of that state of this is really hard for me. Yeah. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Ari. This is Jeff, and thank you for a wonderful talk. I love the topic of Shenpa. I remember the moment I read it in one of her books. But could you clarify whether Shenpa is the exact moment that you're hooked, or just the hook, or is it, the feeling of unease in general? Are they different?
Yeah, exactly. It's usually called attachment, like that's the English word, but it's, as I said, it's really ineffable and hard to describe. So it's not, they talk about it as it's not the thinking, it's the pre-emotion, the pre-thinking. So I think, it is that kind of first feeling before the thoughts arise.
Sort of like vagueness.
Vagueness, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, it could be an experience of vagueness. Yeah. Yeah.
Not vagueness, but the second foundation of mindfulness, Vedana.
Oh, Vedana.
It's feeling tone. Positive, unpleasant, pleasant, or
neutral. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds similar. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris has his hand up. Chris?
Hi, my name's Chris. Thank you for your talk. What I really loved about your talk was I was recognizing certain tenets that I practice in a few 12-step programs I'm in. And when you were talking about how do I recognize what I'm doing and then de-escalate, I think the first time I was taught something like that was when I couldn't really control myself. Before any sort of recovery programs I was in. And the therapist told me that when I realize I'm about to say things in my relationship that I'm going to have to apologize for later, it's a really good idea to say, listen, I'm going to remove myself from this situation and I'm going to go calm down somewhere, but I promise I'll come back. And she let me know that the important part was to let them know that I'd be back so that they don't have to worry while I'm gone. And in time, that gave my partner the faith that I would come back. So when I would say that, it was really like we're taking a time out. And that was super helpful. Today, I guess I'm in a completely different place. And I think what really helps me is having the faith that I may feel this way right now, if I take an action, like maybe just go for a walk or something, that I'll feel better after that. And that as time goes by, like tomorrow, I will feel different than I feel today. So I really have a lot of faith in just letting time go by, and not trying to control that. So thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like very sound advice from your therapist.
Jason?
Thanks, Ari. I've heard Pema talk about Shenpa on a lecture, on a YouTube lecture or something like that before, so it was nice to have an actual moment to engage with the concept. And I just wanted to kind of make a note of, you had said in meditation we have to deal with our thoughts, but something I also find to be really more challenging for me is the emotion. It's just sitting with the emotion. And I reflect that when Shenpa moments happen for me, it's like that flush of emotion that makes me want to have that reaction. And I find that through my years now of practice that I've started to link this to, oh, there's that oppressed, ridiculed little gay boy who I'm feeling all that flush, right, from that past experience. And there's a part of me now as to be looking at it and being like, oh, look, I've had a whole lifetime of practice with these Shenpa moments, right? So our word, I guess, would be reclaim, and to reclaim all of those past hurts and really sit there with the emotion and just sit there with the flush and try not to attack the person, try not to get my power back, and just to sit in what is, and then to move on without escalating or, right, inflaming the moment. So that's kind of what your talk has brought up for me.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, well, we usually wrap up at 11:50-ish. Does anybody want to chime in? Anybody itching to share one more thing?
I really appreciate all this gratitude that's being expressed collectively. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, it feels good. Heart juicy. Okay, just want to talk about dana. Dana is the Pali word for generosity. And so when you contribute to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship, you are helping send out our newsletter to many, many prisoners and other people that are sometimes not able to access live, well, sort of semi-live like this. So please, if you will, contribute. And then if you're on our mailing list, you've received an annual appeal, which is our request for you to kick in even a little more, Donna. Just to show your gratitude. And we use it for the honorarium to pay for speakers, to pay for our Zoom expenses, sending out the newsletter and different things like that. So that is my pitch as Donna Bowl. And does anybody else have any other announcements? Ari, we have our dedication of merit, but do you have a special one that you would like to use?
Oh, no, we can use yours. Thank you.
Any other announcements, anyone? Okay, well, welcome to everyone. Welcome to new folks, and I hope you'll join us again. And so get a little comfy, and I'll read off the merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Great to meet you all.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
Thanks, Ari.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Part of Mexico are you in, Ari?
I'm in Todos Santos, Southern Baja.
Hotel California.
Yes, that's here.
That's where the Hotel California is. I've had a margarita there before.
Are you at Robert Hall's place?
All Saints, is that what it means?
Yeah, it means All Saints.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.